Welcome back to the Blind Zone. What is the blind zone, you say? It's something that you never saw coming, or it's something that you refuse to see that was right in front of your face. Today was supposed to be the second part with Dr. Richards, and unfortunately, I had to cancel at the last minute, so you just got me. But lucky for you, I just came back from a vacation, and so this episode of the Blind Zone is going to be called Lessons from the Lake. It was a 1 week adventure that I had that I learned so much about myself that there'll be lessons that I take with me the rest of my life. So some of it's going to be travelogue, and some of it's going to be the lessons part, and some of it is just going to be my opinion. So you can pick and choose whatever you want out of this. Anyway, lessons from the lake. It started at the first day, and there was a significant issue that was not pleasant, but it taught me, or reminded me actually, of what 1 Corinthians 13 had to say about love, that love is patient and love is kind. Love doesn't envy or boast. It wants the best for people. And so in this event, I had to remember that. And the people that were involved, I didn't harbor any ill feelings. I just felt a total wave of love that I was going to forgive all things, and I still wanted the best. And true, they were going to have to deal with the repercussions of what had happened, but that wasn't my thing. My responsibility was to just love. So that was day one, and then we started in earnest on day two, and we were going from the south to the north, and we were driving. It was my sister and I, and we were driving. And the first day we were driving was uneventful, and we stayed at a hotel, and that was uneventful. So that was a good day, good start to the trip, uneventful. So the next day we traveled on, and we continued north, and we had made arrangements already to have lunch with somebody that we hadn't seen in a really long time. So we went to their house, and we had lunch with her and her husband, and it was delightful. And we knew we were only going to stay a couple hours because we wanted to stay there long enough to reacquaint ourselves, but not so long that they were glad when we left. So we talked about a lot of things, and this is the second lesson I learned. The first one is I learned was how to love. The second one was that I looked around at all the things she had, and I thought, boy, I wish I had. And then there was two blanks that I would fill in. I don't begrudge her any of it. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't even envious. But I thought my life would be different if I had those things. And then shortly thereafter, I repented, and I remembered my scripture verse, which is that I will delight myself in the Lord, and he will give me the desires of my heart. And I thought, if God wanted me to have those two things, then I would have them. And if I didn't have them, then I didn't need them, and that I would be content with what I did have. So then that started the prayer litany in my head of just saying all the blessings, all the way that God has blessed me. And that was quickly abandoned because, again, I was super happy for her and all that they had accomplished. And it was, truly lovely where they were. And I really enjoyed the day. So we traveled on from there, and we finally made it to the lake house. And that was a place that my sister and I had been to a number of times. In fact, my sister had previously owned this property and then sold it to her sister-in-law and brother-in-law, and they put up a new house. And so that's one of the reasons we were able to stay there, because it was still in her family. So the first night we had, done some shopping and brought all of our stuff in our bags and bags and bags and bags and bags of stuff in preparation for what we were calling the cousins reunion. So we dragged it all in and got it all settled, and then we went out on the deck and just listened to the sounds of the lake. And my sister became fascinated with the swans. Oh, I see two swans, three, four. And she finally counted up to 10 swans. And she would, she would point out, oh, there's two by the long lake, there's two by the little island, or, whatever it was. So that was fun. And in fact, the water was so gentle, you couldn't even hear it lapping up against the shoreline. And it just was a very quiet, pleasant end of that third day. So the next day, we just busied ourselves with getting prepared for people to come and the cousins reunion was going to be happening on a Saturday, but we were having two other cousins come in on Friday. So this is Thursday, and we just had done some preparatory work and in preparation for them getting there. And so the beauty part of the plan is we forgot to buy stuff for our lunches and dinners. So we were forced to go out to dinner and lunch, which is no hardship for me. We did eat breakfast there, but so that was fun. I ate things on this trip that I hadn't eaten in 20 years. I stopped at Burger King for the first time in 20 years and had a Whopper. I hadn't had one of those in a million years. And then I remember why I don't do that. I mean, it was tasty, but anyway, I won't do that again for a while. So that was kind of fun. And then my sister and I did something. Now, she had told me that she was watching a soap opera called The Young and the Restless, and the show had been on the air for 50 years. My sister had watched it for 40 years. So she turned it on her phone, and we were watching it, and she had to fill me in on who those characters were because I had never watched it. I mean, when I was in my late teens, my mom and I would sit down and watch Another World. And then at one point I said to my mom, you know what? I don't even know those people, and I have enough trouble on my own, so I don't think I really want to invest my life in theirs either. So I stopped watching. Now, I used to watch Dallas, and that was considered a soap opera, but that's a different thing. So we won't judge me unfairly either. So my sister and I got into this habit that we would watch The Young and the Restless, and she said that the writers were on strike. And I got to thinking about the whole storyline, and it was basically the same thing because, again, there is no sin that is not, uncommon to man. There's no new thing that they're doing. So these writers had to just work with the same people, add in a few more characters now and then, but they had to have drama in their lives. Nobody could just be, everybody lived a normal life. So they had lots of drama, and everybody was cheating on everybody, and then they all looked like they were good people, and then they'd go back to cheating on everybody, and everybody was so intertwined. But every day we'd watch it, and then we'd have the critique of it, and I thought it was funny. And I said, now next year when we do a vacation, I'm going to predict now what's going to be happening next year in this program, and we'll see how accurate I am. And so we laughed about that. But I thought about the 40 years she invested in that. And again, it's just an hour of mindless entertainment for her, and no harm, no foul. And then I thought about it, and I thought, well, I've spent the last 30 years reading the Bible, and it's the same stories. It's, and of treachery and deceit, and the heroes and the villains, and people doing good things and bad things, and doing bad things to other people. But the difference between the Bible and the soap opera is God wrote the Bible, and that story's finished. And the soap opera writers have to keep coming up with a new storyline, just inserting new names and faces for the same trouble that humanity's always had. So that was fun to think about those two things, the soap opera and the Bible, and how much time we invest in things, and if there's any eternal value to any of it. But again, the soap opera, just entertainment. I'm not kidding anybody. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. It was just fun. So then the next day was Friday, and my two cousins from Indiana were coming in, and my cousin Kathleen and I have traveled a lot together, so her and I do well together. And her sister came in, and so we all went out to a lovely dinner at a very nice restaurant, to which I had ordered a Reuben. I hadn't had one of those in a lot of years, and it was probably the worst Reuben sandwich I've ever had in my life. And so I was mad that I wasted something. I had waited and waited in expectation of getting something delightful, and it was terrible. But 2 days before, my sister and I had been there, and I had a delightful dinner. So hit or miss, win or lose. But everybody else had a great dinner, so that was fun. So we went on from there. We went back to the house, and the four of us sat on the deck, and we reminisced about things that had happened collectively for the four of us. Basically, our time at our grandmother's house and the things we remembered. And we all remembered different things, but from the same basic storyline. And we laughed, and we really had a nice time. So it was a good preparation for just relaxing, coming together, and getting ready for the next day. So Saturday, everybody was supposed to come, my brother and his wife and his kids, and and my cousin from Florida was coming up, and so that was Saturday's big event. But on Friday night, I was thinking about it, and I was deciding and thinking about all the places I've lived. I've lived in the north, and then I moved down south. And I do have to tell you, and this is just personal preference, I really, 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 really like Eastern time way better than Central time. And I really like Eastern time in the north, where the daylight is almost an hour longer than it is in Key West, Florida. So in February, almost every February, I just hate the long dark nights. And I'm like, oh, and I'm always trying to pull closer June 21st, where, the day that's the longest day ever. And then as the days get longer and I just get happier, about May, I realized, oh no, June's only a month away. And then I start trying to dig in my heels and push back the time so that I can have as much daylight as possible without, without losing too much. But eventually, June 21st comes, and that's the happiest day for me. And then June 22nd is the worst day because I realize the days are getting shorter again. So it's all in the big cycle of things. So Eastern time zone, fabulous. Up north in the summer, fabulous, more daylight. So that was great. So then the next day we had everybody come, and there was 10 of us, and it was super fun. And some of these people hadn't seen each other for, well, my one cousin hadn't even met my brother's kids. And so that was fun for them. And then my niece had her kids with them, and that was super fun to have a baby to play with and feed and things like that. And their 2.5-year-old was just a delight. She was the funniest thing ever. I mean, I thought my grandson was funny, but man, she was a stitch. So that was great. And we all just sat around and we ate. There was tons and tons of food. So we ate, and then we ate some more, and we ate some more. And everybody just felt very comfortable and relaxed. And my brother's not really a look in the past memory kind of a person. So we really didn't do that a lot. But we just connected and talked about things that we were doing presently and things what we were looking forward to the future, because this is more of a not a looking back type of event, but a getting to know you and going forward kind of event. Now 2 years ago I had vacationed with my brother and his family out in Yellowstone with my cousin Kathleen, and so we had already done a little of that, but this is just a great way for the cousins who hadn't seen each other in a really long time. We all got together. So that was a great day. And I will tell you, my cousin Tori is a prankster, and she pulled a couple of pranks on me, and some of them were even funny, but some she took a little too far. But that's all in the eye of the beholder. And again, I don't have a thin skin. It's just what it was, and it was funny. But I also recognized in that you have safe people. You have people that you can be emotionally safe with, and you have people that you can be physically safe with. Now, with my cousin Kathleen, I'm both emotionally and physically safe with her because, like I said, we've traveled together often. I know her character, and I know that she's always going to have my best interest in heart. Not to say that the rest, were going to push me in the lake and drown me. That's not the case either. But it led me to think about not just physical safety, but the emotional safety of telling somebody something and then having to say to them, this is a story I want you not to repeat. It's not really your story to share. And although it's a great story to tell, it's still a painful story. And I would appreciate it if you kept that to yourself. And unfortunately, in those events, you don't know if that person is trustworthy until later, until you do not hear the story anywhere else and you know that they were, or you do hear it and know that you can't really trust them with that kind of information. And some of these stories, you have a hankering to tell because it's really interesting or serious or whatever it is, and you feel the need to share. And I've often heard people say to me, I'm going to tell you this about so and so, but since you don't know them, it's not going to matter. And even when they say that, I think to myself, if that person asked you not to say it, then even telling it to me still makes it that you're not a safe person emotionally. But again, we all tell stories about other people to other people that maybe we should have kept to themselves. And I can think back over years when I was telling somebody something, and a while later I thought they didn't need to know that. And that was my responsibility to decide who was safe and who was not. Anyway, so that was Saturday, and that was fun. And my brother and his family all went home. And then there were 5 of us staying overnight at the house. And again, we just talked about the events of the day, and we laughed about some stories. And it just was a fun regrouping and retelling of events from different people's perspectives. So that was fun. Then Sunday morning, we got busy and we went to a really fun restaurant for breakfast, the 5 of us. And then the 3 of the cousins, they were all heading off in different directions to go home. And then my sister and I would head back to the lake to clean up. So that was delightful. We talked about a lot of things at the breakfast table, and we had a really good meal. But before long, it was over, and then we hugged in the parking lot. Everybody went their separate ways, and my sister and I drove back to the lake house. And thankfully, it was raining that day, because then we didn't feel bad about not being out in the glorious weather. And we just spent the day, stripping all the beds and washing all the sheets, washing all the towels, cleaning the kitchen, vacuuming, because we had a lot. We needed to make it look better, or at least the same as when we got there. So that was fine. That was Sunday. And then Monday morning, we got in the car and headed for home in the South. We did not drive the whole way, as it was just going to be too much of a drive. And then on Tuesday, I rolled into my house about noon. I shut the door, sat down on the couch, and said, I'm not getting in the car for a really long time. But the lessons I learned from the lake were, when things happen with people in your life, and even when they're significant issues, if you look at it through the lens of love, it's not going to scar you, and it can help you, and that they can learn to trust that you're not going to be critical, because you're going to want the best for them. You're going to be patient and kind and gentle, and and extol some of the fruits of the Spirit. And then when you see what other people have, the other lesson is that sometimes you might feel like you're missing out, but if it's not what God would want for you, then you're not missing anything. And then the safety issue, that you need to feel emotionally and physically safe in the proximity of the people that are around you. And you need to figure out who those people are and in which arena you're safe or unsafe, and adjust, the sails accordingly, so you can fly comfortably. And then travel, it was very relaxing. It was great to see family. Relaxing is a good thing. And the final lesson is, there's no place like home. So it was great to go away. It was great to get back. And I learned a lot about myself, and lessons again that I know I will carry with me for the rest of my days. And I hope I don't forget. So I know I told you that I wasn't going to tell you what was coming up next, but I think I have this on pretty good authority. My 3 friends and I are going to get together, and we're going to be a prayer posse. And we are going to record on prayer, the value of prayer, and how we pray, why we don't pray. So we have a whole multitude of things we're going to talk about at prayer. So you're going to have my favorite 3, Deirdre, Cindy, CW, and Cindy, CJ, and I. And that'll be the next Blind Zone episode. But again, thank you for coming along with me on the lessons that I learned from the lake. And we will see you next time on the Blind Zone.